I am joined by Nicole Adair,
Hello.
SHRs. I don't know. You're doing so much these days. I can't keep up. You're product managing Wave RMS. You're directing our revenue management for hire team.
Yes,
Your
sir.
mom
Yes.
and the kids just got home. I'm waiting because they're going to bust in there any second. I can feel it.
They're being fielded right now by my husband. So
That's good.
no guarantees you won't still hear them through the wall, but
So let's talk segmentation.
okay.
I did a poll the other day. What has been your hotel's biggest segmentation shift since 2019?
Mm.
And you were telling me you finding these results kind of interesting.
I did. I thought they were really interesting. The biggest percentage, of course, was corporate to transient, which makes sense because obviously with COVID, we haven't really had any corporate travel. So we would expect to see that shift, right? And to a slightly lesser extent, about a quarter of the people reported that group to transient was their biggest segment shift. So both of those really make sense. That's to be expected. Hopefully, we'll start to see that shift dialing back a little bit or changing for some hotels, but that's pretty expected based on the market. What I found really surprising actually was 32% OTA to direct, which again expected somewhat. I know there's been a lot of talk about people, the billboard effect on OTA, but then people going to your hotel site to get information on your safety practices and different things that are in place at your hotel. But that's a huge shift. And I know part of what people were worried about with the downturn was, after 9/11 and to a certain extent after the Great Recession and that economic crisis, we saw a big shift to OTAs, right? As business started to come back, because people were just wanting to sell whenever, wherever they can, get heads in beds, and there was a large shift away from direct. So I found that really interesting and really encouraging to see almost a third of hotels report that their biggest shift in comparison to 2019 is actually to direct business. And I think that's really going to be something important for hotels to focus on now that it is getting busier. And for a lot of our US hotels, it started coming fast and furious over the last month or so, just this incredible shift back towards to demand and occupancy. But keep in mind some of the strategies that they had in place, some of the reasons that guests were drawn to their booking engine still, and how they can continue to convert on that and continue to keep that share that they've gotten from their bookings, and really focus on the booking experience on their website, on their booking engine, and just how they can continue to drive guests to convert on that channel.
Most hotels doing a good job of segmenting their business.
I, most hotels are good at kind of setting up their segmentation. That's pretty established and entrenched at this point. The different types of group segments, the leisure segments. What I think hotels really need to focus on, and is even more important now than previously for different reasons, is actually using that segmentation data to inform their strategy, right? So in 2019, and as business continues to come back, that segmentation is really important because they need to know the costs for each of their segments and channels, cost of acquisition, the channel costs, any discounts, margins, all of that goes into a segment, and keep that in mind when they are starting to get busy, and how they can look to shift or restrict different channels to maximize their revenue. But the other piece of that that's going to be really important is that segmentation has changed a lot, as you can see in your survey. And I hope more people will go take that survey, because it's really interesting to see that change. And if hotels have this kind of mindset of, when I'm busy, this is how my business works, and they're referring back to their knowledge from previous years, that's not going to work as we get into recovery. Even though overall their business may be coming back, it's going to continue to look different, and it's going to be coming from different segments. And so if they are not really reviewing that and using that data to inform kind of their understanding and strategy around booking window, even their marketing, where that business is coming from, when they're booking, how far in advance, what that cancel rate is for each of those segments and channels. They're really going to miss a big piece of their strategy as we start to get busy again.
Walk me through, you pull this data from what, CRS? What else? Any other applications they pull it from?
It depends on what the hotels have in place. Ideally, to get the biggest benefit and the easiest insight, it would be coming from some sort of like an RMS or BI tool that will allow kind of easy drill down on that information. But it can be pulled from PMS, from CRS, just as long as they maybe take a minute to make sure that they've cleaned up that segmentation and have it in order. But ideally, they could get it from any of those.
So it's a revenue manager pulling this data usually, or a distribution person?
It's typically going to be the revenue manager, and for a hotel that doesn't have a specific position to oversee that may fall to the GM. It probably is going to end up being someone in sales and marketing potentially, but typically that would be part of the revenue management role, is pulling that data, reporting on it.
So walk me through. You're taking this data, you got it, and where are you going with it? You going into a meeting with sales and marketing in the GM?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that should be in every weekly revenue call, and taking sales and marketing out of it, because I think the marketing strategy is a whole different conversation to be had, as far as not just business segmentation, but guest segmentation and guest profiles and how you're looking at that. But certainly in a revenue meeting every week or every other week, we need to be looking a whole year into the future, at least by month, if not by day, to see, what you have on the books by segment, where it's picking up, since last week. Where have you had spikes in pickup by segment? Where have you had drops? Is that intentional? Is it something you need to address? In looking at booking windows as well, which hopefully you can extract data in a format that you can at least get it into a pivot table if you don't have reporting to provide that. But doing an easy calculation to get booking windows, so hey, I only have a week to go. Where would I expect that business to be coming from, and how am I priced there, so that where to expect, and make sure you're strategizing appropriately to capitalize on whatever's out there.
What do you expect the next few months to look like? What do you expect the summer to look like?
It very much depends by region, right? And I'm going to be kind of US specific in this statement, and that's that it is roaring back for most of our, certainly on the revenue management side, our clients, especially in kind of destination beach type areas, they're having record years, knock on wood, right? I know we're starting to have a red tide scare for a bit of Florida. But it's going to be very busy. There's a lot of pent up demand, and they're seeing that even, in the UK, in Europe as well. When they do lift those restrictions, it's coming back very quickly. It's just going to be a question of what happens with the variants that are going around right now, what happens with, spot shutdowns and things like that to impact it. But people are certainly ready to travel.
So like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of data coming. Mm-hmm. A lot of data to look at. Advice for hoteliers as we wrap up.
Just do, like you mentioned, we were talking about segmentation, have that in order now, make sure you're paying attention, and really, when it comes to both monitoring it, and then also when we were looking at that, that shift to direct, just really make sure that hotels don't start getting so busy that they fall back in old habits and aren't analyzing it to watch how this is changing, because it is different. And so just really watching out, my best advice is to really watch out for just falling back on old habits, old strategy as you start to get busy again, because you need to keep changing and adapting it.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.